The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it, a Tuesday edition of Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Cornhead Lager. Elijah Herbel joined yet again here in the studio by Will Wilson as we bring you this Tuesday show. If you missed anything from yesterday, you missed out on Will. He's going to be in all week long with us as Schmitty has the week off. You can find Will on Twitter at Willie on the radio. You can also listen to him for our local listeners in Lincoln on our home station, KFOR, in the morning hookup from 10 to 11 a.m. You can also find them online. The morning hookup on YouTube is what you look for if you want to find them. So it's a pleasure having Will in here yet again today. Will, you'll be leaving a little bit early today, though, as you have Cornhole League?
Yeah, we call it Bags League. Yeah.
Is that the debate we're going to have to start the show?
It's not my decision. I didn't choose the name. It's just what we've always called it.
It's cornhole in Nebraska.
I agree.
If you're a Midwesterner, it's cornhole. If you're from somewhere else, it's bags. Okay.
I think the reason they call it bags down at Tavern is they think it like kind of sounds sexual. You know, I think that's the reason.
Cornhole?
So, yeah. Cornhole. Anyways. This is dumb.
Yeah.
So, yes, that's why I'm leaving early today.
Okay, well, I will say that from a Midwestern perspective, I think cornhole is the proper name. We don't need to spend too much time on this today.
Yeah.
But I think if you're from Nebraska or surrounding states,
we actually call it Bago League. Actually,
I've never heard that one before.
Bago League, yeah.
That one I've never heard before.
Yeah, if you're up north, I think it's bags.
Well, if you have a strong opinion on this, join us in the Hail Varsity Radio stream. That's the Hail Varsity YouTube page. You can find that. Get checked into the starting five and give us your thoughts. Is it cornhole? Is it bags? We'll be heading to the stream for a couple more thoughts this afternoon. So we'll give you plenty of chances to chime in. We'll also get to the Hail Varsity Radio starting five here in just a moment. First, let's let you know what's coming up today on this show. As it's a Tuesday, we're going to have Mitch Sherman unleash the theory for us here in about 15 minutes. So Mitch Sherman from The Athletic and Locked On Nebraska. He's going to be joining us on the show. And then coming up in hour two, we'll have Michael Bruntz, Huskers 24/7. He's going to be joining us. Got back from vacation. It's been a busy about month for Michael Bruntz as he was overseas, went on vacation, back now, and he's going to be joining us at 5:05 on the phone lines here with us. That's what we got coming up, and then Will checks out after that 5:30 segment. It's going to be me taking you through the home stretch this afternoon. I didn't ask you, how was Darts League last night? Because I know you also checked out a little bit early for Darts League.
So what's funny is I show up, and the team we were supposed to play didn't show up, so they forfeited.
So did it turn into 4 to 6 beers, or?
I had a couple and went home because I bought that new PS5 and I was dying to get home to play it. So yeah, sorry. I wish they would have texted. I could have stayed here the whole show.
Well, it's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay. We had a nice hour two with Charlie McBride, Jay Moore, part of the Black Shirt Hour 2. If you missed any of that, you can catch that wherever you get podcasts. Search up Hail Varsity Radio or find it on the Hail Varsity YouTube page as well. Show title from yesterday, Adapt and Overcome. You can look up that one and find it if you missed anything from the Monday show, as we talked plenty of Evan Cooper and a little more reaction to him resigning his post as Nebraska defensive back coach on Friday evening. Again, Schmitty's got the week off. Does mean we're going to skip out in the Hail Varsity Radio starting five. We'll get to that right now. We also have some comments on bags, cornhole. We'll get to those in just a second. But let's start it off. Jimmy is in first. Gets in at 3:08 today. It was an early stream and an early in from Jimmy. And you Grandpa in and at second. The other Dave's in at third. Jeff from the Boulder Peace Treaty, he's in fourth. And then Broderick in at number 5, getting closer to number 1, says Broderick. I don't think we've ever had Broderick come in number 1 on the Hail Varsity Radio starting 5.
He's trying.
KG is in 6th. Patrick in 7th. I think he meant to say present. He says president, hashtag blame Elijah.
I think he's saying he's the president of the Blame Elijah movement.
Ooh, that could be.
Maybe. I could be wrong.
Patrick, we might need some clarification there. Sal is in 8th. Justin in 9th. We have Donald checking in from Albuquerque. Thanks for having you, Donald. Good to have you in here. Justin, Tuck. We also have Cliff, A-Dub, Weston, NASCAR Eric, other Eric, and I think that might be it for now. So if you want to get in the Hail Varsity Radio starting five, join us on the Hail Varsity YouTube page. We have some thoughts here, though. Jeff wants to ask, Will, do you play with the bust rule?
No, we don't, actually. We do not. First one to 21 or over wins the round.
See, house rules, especially at my dad's house, you don't play with the bust rules, but I found it is more fun whenever you have to do that mental math in your head.
I enjoy it.
Especially after a couple beers, now you're trying to do mental math. Math was never my strong suit. There's a reason you and I both went into broadcasting.
Yes.
Wasn't terrible at math. It wasn't my strong suit, though. I didn't quite enjoy it. And whenever you're trying to focus on this game, beer in hand, the math just is not for me.
No, and we have a lot of teams, so if you play with the bust rule, the games would go on forever.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why we don't play that.
Eric also chimes in and says, up north they call it bags.
Yeah, they call it bags. That's so true. Want to play bags? Gosh, miss my Minnesota family now.
Yeah, you just got back from Minnesota. What was that? Week and a half ago? 2 weeks ago?
A couple weeks ago. We played some bags up there. Yeah.
Bags. Well, let's get to business here, as we have plenty to discuss today. Where we're going to start this off, the show today, as we talk some football, is in Europe, obviously, because where else would we start? The Euro soccer tournament. I promise I won't spend very long on this, and I promise it's a good segue into Husker football. I promise our topic of the day in relation to Lamine Yamal. If you don't know the name, I don't blame you. Lamine Yamal.
Lamine Yamal.
First name, Lamine. Last name, Yamal. There's actually a great photo.
Yamal, not Lamal.
Yeah, I think I mispronounced it earlier. Happens.
Quarter.
Yeah, well, quarter right here.
Mm-hmm.
That's going in the tip jar. I hope you can hear that in the mic. Lamine Yamal is his name. There's some pictures going around right now. He was actually in a FC Barcelona calendar from whenever he was a baby. It was him posing with Lionel Messi, which is kind of Lionel Messi a little bit before the fame as well. Lamine Yamal is like a little 2-month-old baby, and it's them posing together, and it made it into an FC Barcelona calendar, and everyone's bringing this up now. That's an aside. It really doesn't matter. If you do the math, though, that was back in 2007. That would mean he's 16 years old now. He now plays for Barcelona, and he plays for the Spain national team. Big Euros tournament, semifinal day. He became the youngest goal scorer in Euros history at 16 years old, scoring an absolute wonderful goal. Will and I reacted to it off the air before the show started. We're getting there to football, I promise. How this relates is I want to ask the question, as Will and I kind of sat back and went, wow, this kid's special. Are there any moments in Husker history where you look back at a guy, maybe a freshman, a redshirt freshman, makes a play in a game, and you say, wow, this guy's going to be special? Why I ask the question is there's a quarterback who I don't think I need to name that a lot of people think is going to be special. And you want to see those plays this fall, saying, wow, this guy's going to be special. This guy's going to be a first-round pick. This guy's going to be a Heisman Trophy candidate someday. You want to have that flash of something as a youngster the first year in the program, assuming he's the starting quarterback, which feels right now to be a safe assumption to make. So I want to think back to the Husker Rolodex, and Will and I both being in our mid-20s, we don't have the full history of Husker football like some of our listeners. Not calling you old, but you've seen a little more Husker football than us. And I want to dive back into the Rolodex, the people that saw some of those teams in the 80s and 90s, that saw some of those impact players. Do you have any moments that stand out in your mind as being a wow moment? This guy is going to be something special. You can send us a tweet at Herbal Essences, at H Varsity Radio. Hop in the YouTube stream chat. You can give us a call as well. 402-489-1240 is the number you call. Again, 402-489-1240 is the number you call. What is a wow moment from a young Husker that makes you go, this kid's going to be special? And it'd be preferred if they end up living up to the hype. And there's a couple moments that stand out to me in my mind. Will, I'll get your thoughts here in just a second as well. But the first place my mind goes is Taylor Martinez. The redshirt freshman year, he had been like the scout team MVP the year before. And you remember the quarterback battle, Cody Green, Zach Lee, Taylor Martinez. Who's it going to be? Who's going to be the starting quarterback? It was a secret up until that first game. I believe it was Western Kentucky. And Taylor Martinez ends up just absolutely torching that Western Kentucky defense, something like 200-plus passing yards and 200-plus rushing yards, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. He torched the defense. That's one that stands out in my mind. Get to some more as well, but Will, I'm going to turn it over to you while I field a phone call.
I have an interesting list. I don't know. Some of these are interesting. In terms of football, kind of more recent, I thought when Malcolm Hartzog kind of got onto the scene, he made some plays, especially against Indiana. I don't know if that necessarily counts because we thought you're saying people we thought we were going to be special. You could argue he maybe kind of took a step back last year. I don't know. Did you hear that? I mentioned Hardsog, Elijah.
Okay.
That I feel like that's kind of one. And again, I want to revisit what you said. We're younger than most of our listeners. Okay, so we'll keep that in mind. How about? And this is also an interesting one because I think we all kind of stopped kind of enjoying this guy, Wan'Dale Robinson, because he transferred away. But let's not forget, man, when he got on that field, he was electric, and I think we all kind of thought, wow, I hate bringing up that one because he transferred and that was bad.
I mean, he ended up having a good career at Kentucky for a year.
Yeah,
and then goes off to the NFL. I'll give it to you.
I was thinking basketball.
Yeah. Okay.
Siobhan Shields.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I remember when my dad and I were watching him as a freshman, I was young at the time, and Dad goes, you were going to be sad when he graduates. Like, you are not going to want him to leave. And sure enough, I mean, that is exactly what happened. Ty Webster maybe, came in as a true freshman. He was the point guard, the floor general of that tournament team. I'm sure we all kind of had an idea with that. Glenn Watson, when he got here, he was just money.
Jordy Shamonga?
Jordy Shamonga, my God. Women's basketball, Jess Shepard. When she, I think we all knew before she even committed that she was going to be
top 3 recruit in the country. Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of my list.
It's good. Did you mention Amir Abdullah?
No, because I thought you were going to bring it up, and I think that's everyone's easy answer.
The kickoff return against Fresno State.
Yeah.
He was getting some spot time at running back early in the season. You get non-conference, and he returns that kick against Fresno State, makes that wow moment, and you go, okay.
When the game was kind of still close.
Yeah, it was still not. I think Nebraska had the lead at that point, but it was still somewhat in question. He goes and houses a kick. You go, okay, wow. And he ended up earning himself some snaps as the year went on, but he had that kind of wow moment of breaks that Fresno State defender's ankles and goes 98 yards or something like that.
Yeah.
Almost ran out of gas at the goal line. But I think if they would have reviewed that play, I think he might have been down a half yard short. It doesn't matter, though. They called it a touchdown. And a wow moment there that made you go, okay, this kid could be something special. So that's a good one as well. We go to the phone lines here with Sal. Sal was in the Hail Varsity starting 5 today, and he chimes in with a thought on this conversation. Sal, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Good. Enjoying a week back at work. Once you settle back in on a Monday, now you're into Tuesday, and it's back to normalcy.
Absolutely.
So, Sal, what do you have for us here?
Okay, I'm going to go back in time. Well, I was spoiled growing up watching the Huskers, and I'm in my 50s, so I remember Nebraska when they had the best running backs in the nation. We had the best offensive line out there, but we had a great quarterback. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up Tommy Frazier. For me, Tommy Frazier gave me that wow when I seen him perform as a freshman and then further on in his career. He's unbelievable.
It's a great answer. I mean, especially considering the stature of that team that he was on as a true freshman to step in. It's a good answer. I wasn't lucky enough to see it, unfortunately, but we've talked to enough people. Schmitty remembers it. We've talked with Mike Babcock plenty about the recruitment, Bill Dolman as well, the recruitment, and then that wow season from Tommy Frazier as a freshman where he steps in. Yeah, that's up there for me, and I wish I could have seen it.
Yeah, I mean, he really shined. I remember Charlie Ward was playing quarterback for Florida State Seminoles. I think we played him in the Fiesta. I want to say Fiesta Bowl, maybe the orange. But he shined. We knew right then we had a gem. We knew that we was going to be about something for the next 3 years, and sure enough, that's exactly what happened.
Was there kind of I know you watched Lawrence Phillips, and was there kind of that feeling when he first got on the scene?
Lawrence Phillips was just special. He was just different. Lawrence Phillips was a man against boys. It seemed like it wasn't even fair. He'd float on his feet, and he had thunder. That man was great.
He had thunder. I like it.
Sal, thanks for the phone call today.
Pardon me?
I said thanks for the phone call today, Sal.
Absolutely. Good talking to you guys, and great show. Appreciate you.
Yeah, have a good one. So, again, to refresh for you, if you're just joining us, conversation topic of the day, that wow moment. We were watching, Will and I, before the show started, the Euro semifinal between Spain and France. Lamine Yamal becomes the youngest goal scorer in Euros history, 16 years old. I know most people don't care about soccer around here. That's okay. I've tied it back into Husker football. He scored a wonderful goal. Spain advances to the Euros final. And we're kind of talking that wow moment. Are there any wow moments that stand out to you in Husker history as a guy that made a special play as a freshman, as an 18-year-old, or as a 19-year-old, and you go, that kid's going to be something special, and it ends up paying off? So that's our topic of discussion to lead off here.
Trevor said it was pretty. He thought you were going to be special when you fumbled a snap for Lincoln Southeast with the game on the line.
Good memory. Good memory. That was my junior year, so I was 16 years old.
Oh, so it's true.
It's Lincoln Southeast against Lincoln High. We were on the goal line.
Oh, man.
We ended up losing by, I think, 3 points.
Sorry to hear that, man.
I fumbled a snap. It was not fun.
Hello, darkness, my friend.
Yeah, I wish that wasn't brought up today. I'd put that away in my memory.
That's funny, man.
Thanks for that one, Trevor. Good
Jake
memory.
Myers might be another
Husker baseball.
Another one. I'm sure once he got on that field, we all thought he was, he lived up to it too.
I'm trying to think what this.
I'm sure Alex Gordon. This was all before. Alex was before you and I were really able to remember stuff. But
there was a center fielder who ended up getting drafted by the Red Sox. Last name Bolt. Ryan Bolt. Mm-hmm. He made some plays as a freshman. I remember him thinking he was going to be special. He didn't quite pan out in the same way that you thought, but that's a name that comes to mind for me for Husker baseball. It was probably a little over a decade ago now. Anyway, we'll get Mitch Sherman's take on this. Mitch Sherman's coming away after the break. We'll also get into the news of the week. That's Evan Cooper's departure as he made the surprising announcement on Friday afternoon. What does John Butler bring to Nebraska? We'll get Mitch Sherman from The Athletic and Locked On Nebraska. His take coming your way after the break. It's Elijah Herbel, Will Wilson taking you through a Tuesday edition of Hail Varsity Radio. As always, we're sponsored by Cornhead Lager, and we'll have Mitch Sherman unleash the fury after this.
It's that time.
Hey, Mitch. Mitchie. We're looking for you, pal.
Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, talking Big Red.
Unleash the fury, Mitch.
Unleash the fury!
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Rolling through a Tuesday here on Hail Varsity Radio. Elijah Herbel, Will Wilson joining you in studio today. As always, we're brought to you by Cornhead Lager, and we're excited to welcome Mitch Sherman to the show as we don't have a whole lot to talk about with Mitch today. Just kidding. It's never a dull week in Husker media, and this week is obviously the same as we get geared up for fall camp. Schmitty's got the week off, recovering from both a broken ankle and also spending some time out on the golf course. He'll be back with us next Monday, but regardless, the show rolls forward. And Mitch, it's good to have you. How are you doing? How was the 4th of July?
It was good. Those things that you just mentioned about Schmitty do not go together. I hope he realizes a broken ankle and the golf course are a bad combination.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to care. He's rocking it in the boot. I have not heard a report of how his scores are coming in. I'm not sure if you think it makes a difference. It's the left ankle that he broke in a golf cart on Friday and took like 1 day off. He was back golfing yesterday. He's back golfing today. The man's a warrior.
He is that. I mean, there's some other descriptions I think I might use. Warrior is one of them. He's committed for sure to the game of golf. If I broke an ankle, so he did it in the cart. Did he run? Did he get run over? Or
he was hanging his foot out the golf cart and got it caught in between the golf cart and a retaining wall.
I should not be laughing about that. But,
I feel the same way, but I've been laughing for 3 days about it.
Well, good for him for getting back out, because I would not. If I broke my ankle playing golf or in any way associated with playing golf, maybe if I could get through the pain, I could then go drive the cart for the rest of the week. But to actually continue to play is taking it to a new level. So I'll be sure to talk to him about that when we next visit.
It's Mitch Sherman from The Athletic with us here on Hail Varsity Radio as Mitch joining us for the usual Tuesday segment. And Mitch, I want to, before we get to Evan Cooper, the drama that ensued this weekend, maybe a quick thought on Terrence Knight and if Sunday was anything. I'll also talk to John Butler. I want to get your thoughts on our topic of discussion of today. I'll reset it for you. Our topic of discussion has been in somewhat relation to soccer. I'm not sure if you've been following the Euros at all. Patrick Mahomes tweeting today about the Euros saying it's awesome. I endorse that. I'm not a huge Patrick Mahomes or Chiefs guy, but he's on the right path there. Basically, semifinal today, Spain against France. Lamine Yamal, he's 16 years old, plays for Barcelona. He became the youngest goal scorer in Euros history with an absolute beauty of a goal, and it kind of reinforces what we've been told. This kid's going to be the next big thing in soccer. And I fully believe it. Go check out the goal if you care about soccer at all. I'm not going to talk about soccer with you, though. I'm going to ask you the question in relation to Dylan Raiola, him showing up this fall, being a true freshman, likely starting quarterback. Husker fans want to see him make some plays. Are there any moments that stand out to you from young Huskers in history where they made a play as a freshman or as a young player and it kind of ticked something in you that made you go, that kid's going to be something special?
Yeah, I mean, he's an old man compared to your European soccer player that you're referencing. Dylan is 19, but I would go. Yeah, I'm sure there are. You remember Taylor Martinez as a redshirt freshman quarterback and what he did at Washington in, I believe, his second start. And there were points all through that season in 2010 where, as a young player, he was a special guy. I think about in that same era, Rex Burkhead as a true freshman. I don't know if it was really one play, but it was more just the maturity and the overall readiness that he brought. Like, he was a veteran when he stepped on the field before his true freshman season, showing up for the summer out of Texas and being ready to go. And the players talked about him like he just kind of had this reverence about him that just grew through his Nebraska career. I would go way back, and I certainly remember Amon Green as a true freshman in 1995, and when he touched the ball, he was electric right away. I believe he got his first start against Washington State that year, and it was maybe the closest game that Nebraska played in 1995, and it was still a 3-touchdown win, and the Huskers had to go to Green, who was like their third-string I-back, and you're talking about him running as the third-string I-back behind a guy who would have won the Heisman Trophy if he had stayed on the field ahead of Amon, and it was in no way a downgrade when Amon Green, as a true freshman, got the football in that 1995 season. In fact, he was maybe an upgrade in some ways with just his sheer speed and electricity over a guy who was, in I think a lot of people's eyes, the best player in college football that season, Lawrence Phillips.
We're talking to Mitch Sherman. Mitch, let's go to the news that dominated the weekend. Evan Cooper resigned, and there's obviously a lot to get to, but give me your initial reaction when you heard the news, and what do you think we're going to be missing most with Cooper no longer a part of the staff?
Right, it was a shock to see that come on the Friday after the 4th of July at 6 o'clock at night. I was stunned. Evan Cooper is the most valued. I mean, you don't necessarily want to rank these guys, but he was among the most valued assistant coaches on the Nebraska staff, and that includes the coordinators. So there's a defensive coordinator and an offensive coordinator and a co-offensive coordinator and a special teams coordinator, and he's right there with all of them as far as his value to Matt Rule and this coaching staff. So that's what they're going to miss. And while his value as a secondary coach, I think Nebraska can replace, and it may be on the way to replacing that if it ends up signing, as expected, John Butler, the former DB's coach for the Buffalo Bills. You're not going to replace Cooper's ability to evaluate talent. That was his kind of his superpower, his special gift, and it's part of the reason that Matt Rule paid him the way that he was paid. He was paid $670,000, and I think there was a clause in his contract that he had a retention bonus because Coop was a sought-after guy in this last offseason. There were programs that are at a higher level of competition and play, maybe not competition, but a higher level of success than what Nebraska's at right now that were coveting him and offering to pay him more money, and he chose to stay. So you can see what his value is, and that's the tough thing to replace is his eye for talent and the way that he was able to find prospects before they blew up nationally, and that allowed Nebraska to get a head start with a number of guys in the last 2 recruiting classes, even 3 recruiting classes when you consider this one in 2025.
It's Mitch Sherman with us here from The Athletic and also the Locked On Nebraska podcast. And Mitch, you talked about this on the pod a little bit today. The reason why. We don't have any official confirmation out there. There's always going to be rumors flying in Husker media, and I don't want to dive into the rumors. But one of the things that stuck with me, I've kind of alluded to it yesterday, is the fact that, guys that resign on their own terms under good circumstances tend to get the benefit of some sort of statement. They get to talk to the media. They get to talk to the fans. Maybe they put up something on their Twitter. None of that from Evan Cooper. Do you think we're going to be getting a reason why? Because it strikes me as a case of not being on good terms, potentially something disciplinary.
Sure. I would agree with what you said. I don't think that we're going to get a reason from beyond something that is fairly vague from Matt Rule or Troy Dannon or the Nebraska administration. I do think that Evan Cooper will surface somewhere as a football coach, and perhaps he'll talk about it, and maybe he'll go into detail. Maybe not. He may not. If there were to be anything that came with documentation, if he was involved in an investigation, and you can continue down that road. If there was documentation that was involved, then it will come out because there are public records involved with that. But if it's not, and it was an internal matter, and it got to the point where he was just no longer able to continue as a Nebraska assistant coach, and his only option was to resign, then I don't know that we'll ever officially get details. Now, there's people out there who think they know. There's probably people out there who do know, but it's not at a place where it's being reported or it's in a position to be reported, because that's all got to be through official. You have to have someone saying it and talking about it who is a head coach or an athletic director, or the coach himself involved, or again, there has to be a documented reason in a letter of resignation, and I don't know that is going to surface.
Mitch, you kind of briefly hit on this really fast, and we're talking with Mitch Sherman here from The Athletic. What do you think, in terms of the loss of Cooper, is going to be felt the most in 2024? I mean, a lot of young guys in that room, and that was kind of his strength. You also look at a recruiting class this summer that maybe wasn't as great as people thought. There's a lot of work to be done this fall, and Evan Cooper did a lot of work on the recruiting trail. And also as that kind of trusted right-hand man to Rule. It's a big guy to have on your staff as well. In terms of 2024, what do you think hurts the most for this Husker football team with this departure?
Yeah, that's a lot of areas. In 2024, I would say the impact will be most felt in the secondary, because you can be bringing in the best coach in the world to replace him in the world at doing what he does, coaching defensive backs, and it's still going to be difficult to get up to speed and to develop the relationship and the trust that's needed to coach those guys most effectively in a season that begins in less than 2 months. The new coach won't be able to work with his DBs until we get to the end of July, beginning of August. And at that point, you're 4 weeks away, or less than 4 weeks away, right around 4 or whatever, from the season opener. So all the equity and trust and knowledge that Cooper has with his DBs, is somewhat out the window. Now, there are other coaches who work with the defensive backs. I get it. Tony White undoubtedly is going to step in and help the transition for the next secondary coach, and that's all going to be fine. But that's going to be time taken away that Tony White could be perfecting other areas of the defense. So there's a trickle-down effect a little bit. I do think that a toll will be felt here in 24 just because it's so close to the season when the next guy gets on the ground. It doesn't mean it's got to be debilitating or anything like that, and I think in the long run, that's an area that Nebraska can shore up, and the impact won't be felt as much on the field. It'll be more in the evaluation and recruiting area. But here in 2024, at least at the beginning of the season, the first half of the season, those are difficult shoes to fill.
It's Mitch Sherman with us here. You see him with The Athletic. And Mitch, would it be possible, could we get 2 minutes on the other side with you to talk about, in the name everyone's talking about, John Butler? Could we get your thoughts on him and if he is the guy on the other side of the break? Could that be possible?
We can do that, yeah.
Appreciate you, Mitch. Mitch Sherman, more with him coming your way after the break here on Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
few more minutes here. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, as well as the Locked On Nebraska podcast, joins us here. It's Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Cornhead Lager. And Mitch, to dive right back into this conversation, we finished off talking Evan Cooper. Before we get you out here, I want to discuss what's next. The name everyone is discussing is John Butler, former defensive backs coach, both with the Houston Texans and the Buffalo Bills. No official confirmation just yet, but no other names have been floating out there as it stands. It does seem, in my eyes, like he's going to be the guy. What are you hearing about him in terms of an announcement, if that's going to happen? Is he the guy? Is that what you're hearing as well?
Yeah, well, they've been talking. Absolutely, I can confirm that, and Nebraska's hopeful that he ends up as the coach. It may at this point be a done deal, and they're just waiting for the contract to be signed or the right time to announce it. I mean, there's not necessarily any benefit in announcing it on Tuesday versus Friday here in this week in July, where that coach he's not out recruiting at this moment. It's a dead period. He's not coaching players on campus. Oftentimes when these kind of moves are made, it's, there's an urgency because you need to get somebody out on the road and get into a recruit's home. Or, last year Nebraska made a late change when Bob Wager resigned and they promoted Josh Martin, and it was right at the cusp of preseason camp opening, and it had to be done in a hurry for that purpose. This one, where we're at on the calendar, I could see any time in the next week, as long as they're able to just come to terms. And I think that shouldn't be a problem. There were some, I think there are some hurdles in that Butler has been out of work for a few months and, hasn't worked in college for a while. So he needs some reassurances about what he's walking into. College football's changed since he was the defensive coordinator at Penn State more than a decade ago. And I'm sure he's working to get up to speed and making sure that, that everything is as it appears with the program and the contractual situation. So I do think it'll happen. It could be tomorrow, it could be next week. But I think by the time that the coaches reconvene at the end of July in Lincoln to get started on preseason camp, he will be have been in the fold for plenty of time.
Mitch, one more question for me. On Butler, have you been able to dive into what kind of coach he is? What are some things that you're excited to see, and are there any questions you have regarding him?
Not a huge amount. Had the weekend and looked at him a little bit, and I talked to our writer from The Athletic, Tim Graham, who covers the Buffalo Bills, and he told me that as Butler went out in Buffalo, there's the expectation when an NFL assistant coach leaves on his own that there must have been something wrong, and did he feel scorned because he got passed over for the defensive coordinator job? And Tim assured me that was not the case, and that's the article that he wrote that has, I think, circulated around here in Nebraska this week that came out back in February on The Athletic about how, no, there was not a scandal. It was a situation where the Bills were looking to replace their defensive coordinator. They needed to make a hire. It was going to be from within, and they chose a 40-year-old linebackers coach over Butler, who's 51, as a secondary coach. And, he saw his path to becoming a defensive coordinator, which is what his goal is, either in the NFL or at a high college level. He saw that path probably needing to go somewhere other than through the Buffalo Bills. So, he took a leap of faith and stepped down and was confident that he'd be able to find something, and if it wasn't this year, then he'd be able to find something soon. Maybe he wanted to be in a position before now. I'm not sure. I haven't asked him, haven't been able to talk to him yet. I think that'll happen when he gets on the ground in Lincoln. We'll hear from him as long as he's the hire in preseason camp, and I'll be interested to hear that. Why did you feel that it was important to step away before you had something secured? And then, how was that 6 months or so, or 5 months when it looked like maybe you wouldn't be able to coach in 2024? Those are interesting questions that I'd like to hear his answer. I think it'll tell us more about him as a person and as a coach, and more about the guy who's going to be working most likely with the Nebraska defensive backs. But he's has been revered by his guys, by his defensive backs in Buffalo over the time that he was there. Not a bad thing was said about him in the stuff that was written as he exited. So, that's a good sign for him and a good sign, of course, for Nebraska moving forward.
It's Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Check out him on the Locked On Nebraska podcast as well. Mitch, appreciate you giving us a few minutes of overtime. It's interesting you mentioned your colleague with The Athletic, Tim Graham. We're going to have a cut from his podcast. He had Coach Butler on his podcast a couple months ago, and Coach Butler had an interesting answer. We're going to get to that a little bit later in the show, so I'm glad you mentioned that. But really appreciate your time here on a Tuesday. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll chat next week, all right?
All right, thanks a lot. Same to you guys.
There is Mitch Sherman joining us for his usual Tuesday segment here on Hail Varsity Radio. Again, as always, we're sponsored by Cornhead Lager. Elijah Herbel joined here in studio by Will Wilson as Chris Schmidt has the week off. He's off on a golfing expedition, and we'll have him back on Monday in a boot, as we've discussed a couple times today. Schmidt's recovering from a broken ankle as well. He had this week already planned to be off. It's not like he broke his ankle and then went, I'm going to take the week off and go golfing, like middle fingers up to everybody. Not that at all. He had this already planned. It actually threw a big wrench into his plans, but he decided, you know what, I'm going to carry through. I'm going to go golfing anyway. So we'll be hearing from Schmidt next Monday as he rejoins us, potentially a Saturday morning appearance from Schmidt as well. We have some more thoughts in on our question of the day, which is essentially in response to Lamine Yamal, I got it that time. Lamine Yamal, his stunning goal, 16 years old at the Euros, the youngest player to ever score a goal at that soccer tournament in the semifinal, France against Spain. What are some young Husker performances, some guys that are freshmen, redshirt freshmen, where they had that wow moment where you went, this guy's going to be special? What moments stand out in your mind? A couple that are before my time. This comes in from Midway Bar on Twitter. Midway says, Steve Taylor, 1985. And you hear plenty of stories about Steve Taylor and the kind of difference maker that he was whenever he got to campus, and just kind of made everybody go wow, as he really brought Nebraska in with like the triple option and that scoring explosion type offense. It was kind of predicated around him, that wow you saw with him whenever he stepped on the field. You also have, also from Midway Bar, Johnny Mitchell, 1990, a guy I've heard a lot of stories about, and I don't think I've ever really sat down and watched the film and seen what he brought to the field. That's a name I've heard plenty about. I have to get Mike Babcock's take on this yesterday. And then Grant Wistrom, 1994.
Yeah, some good names. Even Sue, Ndamukong Suh when he hit the field.
And Sue was great. It's always tough on the lines of scrimmage to be a guy that steps in and really makes you go wow early, because there's so much physical development that needs to happen. I remember that wow moment for Sue being towards the end of his sophomore year.
Yeah.
Where he really started getting on the field. He started to go, okay, this guy could be good. And then he made a giant leap before his junior year and really starts making plays. Then I actually saw a thread online today about, it was asking random college football fans, like, hey, who is a player that still you think back on just strikes fear into you because you realize there was nothing you could do against him? And Ndamukong Suh was a really, really popular answer from some old Big 12 schools.
Oh, yeah.
Of just, you watched him and you just understood, hey, our offensive line can't be judged on this game because that guy's so different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would not want to go up against that guy. Would have killed me.
I wouldn't want to go up against that guy in football, in a fight, in anything.
And you know what? Because of Sue, we could say Crick. We thought he was going to be special.
That's true. And
because of Sue.
Because he played next to Sue. Well, we'll have one more segment here as we wrap up hour one of a Tuesday edition of Hail Varsity Radio. We'll come with that after the break right here. It's Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time here, hour one of Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Cornhead Lager. Had a great sit down with Mitch Sherman from The Athletic here this hour. We also discussed the topic, what moment from a young Husker student athlete stands out to you as being that wow moment? Wow, this kid's going to be good. This kid's going to be something special. We've had some great submissions in already. Sal called us back in the first segment. If you have any thoughts on that, give us a call. 402-489-1240. Drop a comment in the Hail Varsity Radio stream. You can find that on YouTube, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Just pop open YouTube, search Hail Varsity. It should say live. Click on that live link, and you should find our beautiful faces, Will and myself, streaming live. If you're not on YouTube, though, you can send us a tweet at HVarsity Radio, at Herbal Essences for me, at Willie on the Radio for the man sitting next to me here, Will Wilson. So all great ways to get in contact, no matter how you want to get in contact. Phone call, Twitter, social media, YouTube. You can also send Schmitty an email, chris@hailvarsity.com. My email is way too convoluted to say on the air, and it's probably just going to lead to confusion. So we're not going to deal with that thing. DM me, though. You can DM me on Twitter/X, and I will get back to you as soon as I can as well. Quick news and note here before we take our break for the top of the hour and welcome in Michael Bruntz to kick off Hour 2 of Hail Varsity Radio is the official partnership announced between the 1890 Initiative, now just referred to simply as 1890 Nebraska. They've become the official NIL collective of Nebraska, meaning there's going to be an official partnership between 1890 and the Nebraska Athletic Department. This is expected. Whenever you have that landmark ruling just a couple of months ago on NIL, you can bring it in-house, you can pay players directly. Kind of makes it possible to bring some of the NIL stuff in-house, at least with an official partnership, and handle some of the things that way. A little more oversight from the athletic department. More importantly, though, for you, the fan, as we talk to you, some important pieces of information as a part of this. First off, contributions to 1890 now eligible for Husker Athletic Fund priority points, meaning you can use those priority points to get yourself tickets and seat locations for away games, postseason events, single game ticket purchases, and the seat yourself process for season tickets. You get a better time slot the higher of a membership level you are. Also, donations to 1890 moving forward will be tax deductible when directed to the 1890 Foundation. So that's another important piece of information. From a specifically on the field point of view, how does this change things? Well, I don't think all that much. Maybe you're going to open it up to more people across the state to donate to 1890 as opposed to some of the movers and shakers, because people are going to say, I'm going to need to get priority points to get season tickets next year. Might as well make a donation to 1890 here to get myself some priority points. Get yourself a little bit higher. That's the main thing I see here. The tax deductibility is also nice, a nice feature. We can get into the discussion of should a donation to an NIL collective be tax deductible. That's not for me to decide. And therefore, I'm going to stay away from that conversation. Let the politicians handle that one. I'm not going to dive into that can of worms. But that's a news and note. That was from yesterday. We didn't have time to get to it yesterday with all the Evan Cooper news. Thought I'd just drop a little bit into the show today to make note of that. If you'd like to find more on that, I'm sure you can find information online. I'm by no means the expert on what this means for Nebraska, but I think from a convenience standpoint, it kind of helps some of the fans.
Yeah, I think so too. All around good thing. I do wonder how long, donations will go.
Well, my question, can my purchase of Cornhead Lager get me priority points?
It should.
It should. That'll do it for us here in Hour 1 of Hail Varsity Radio. When we return, we'll welcome Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7 to the show. That's after the break right here on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Cornhead Lager.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to Hour 2 of Hail Varsity Radio. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Elijah Herbel, joined here in studio by Will Wilson. You hear him, our local listeners, on KFOR's The Morning Hookup from 10 to 11. You can find that online as well. Search it up on YouTube, The Morning Hookup. We're very thankful to have Will in here this week as Schmitty has the week off. He'll be back with us either Saturday or Monday, to be determined on an official date, but he is both recovering from a broken ankle and taking a golfing expedition, so earning some much-needed time off and recovery time. We're excited to welcome 24/7's Michael Bruntz to the show here to talk a busy week that it's been a busy weekend. But, Michael, before we dive into the news of the weekend being Evan Cooper, Coach Butler as well potentially being on our radar as the next defensive backs coach. Let's take you through your 4th of July weekend. How are you doing today, first and foremost? And secondly, you still have all 10 fingers, all 10 toes. You enjoy your 4th of July?
Yeah, everything's accounted for. We've got youngish kids, so we don't get too crazy with the fireworks, which is probably a good thing. But yeah, it was a good weekend, all in all. You guys do okay? You guys just go and light up a paycheck with some of the fireworks?
I did. We discussed this a little bit on the show yesterday. Will, not so much, but I umpire baseball all summer long. And I think most of the games I umpired in June went directly to fireworks and food and beer.
That's all right. I mean, it's the circle of life. It's baseball leading to fireworks. There's probably some very American equation there, I think.
Yeah, that's just Americana right there. Baseball and fireworks is summer, I think, in the United States. Meanwhile, Will, he saved his money on fireworks and instead spent his money on a PlayStation 5 so he can play NCAA football coming up here in a couple weeks.
That's smart. That's a good investment. You got ahead of it a couple of weeks too, because I feel like there's going to be a run on him here this week.
Highly recommended. Yeah, thanks, Michael. Yeah.
Are you planning on getting yourself a copy?
Not right out of the gates, but it's I would have to upgrade, so I might be in the same boat, joining the riots for whatever is available out there. But I'm leaning towards yes. I'm due for a new system at least.
Well, and one of the things I've talked about before on this show is the fact that if you got any kids' birthdays coming up, you can totally buy them a PS5 and it's theirs, quote unquote. But Dad's playing NCAA football until 1 a.m. every single night. Like it could be smart.
Yeah, no, it's a family investment. I think is a good way. It's like, yeah. I think I could spin it that way successfully. And
it's also a formative experience in a youth's life to be just absolutely beaten to the ground by their father in NCAA football. I feel like that's a formative experience that all kids must have.
But it's I don't know about you guys. I'm a little older, and seeing some of these the just like how in depth it is. There's part of me at my advanced age where I'm like, man, I don't know if I have the headspace to be able to like bluff coverages and all this other stuff. Like, I grew up on John Elway quarterback where you had like 3 options, and that felt like enough for me. So I might be in over my head a little bit there.
See, on the other hand, though, you could actually use it to improve your own work by diving into some 3-3-5 concepts and make sure you have that down. The new RPO system, you can start reading some books. A, for your job, but B, also for NCAA football, you know?
That's true. So you got all this. You got it squared away here, I think. I need to listen to you a little bit more.
Michael, as we turn to football, first I want to open it with our question of the day. Just a quick thought here. I'm not sure if you're watching the Euros at all. A 16-year-old, he became the youngest goal scorer in Euros history today. His name is Lamine Yamal, plays for Spain. His goal helped Spain advance to the finals, which is coming up. They took down France. It was a beautiful goal, and it kind of got me thinking, are there any moments that stand out in your mind where you saw a youngster Husker athlete, whether it be a freshman, redshirt freshman, step up and make a play or have one of those games that made you go, wow, that kid's going to be special?
Does the 2011 spring game count? The Jamal Turner game? That was that was one that kind of popped on the radar a little bit. I'm trying to think.
See, I went Taylor Martinez. That debut game against, I think it was Western Kentucky.
Yeah, that one would be there. I mean, a pretty good. He had been, starting for Taylor Martinez against K-State. I mean, that one was kind of like the probably the ultimate. We were like, okay, this could be something here. But yeah, I mean, Ahman Green was kind of that way when he was a younger player, as well as playing as a true freshman and just kind of showing what he could do at that point. Those are probably the ones that immediately come to mind, at least.
So Michael Bruntz with us here. 24/7 is where you follow him on Twitter. Find him at Michael Bruntz. And Michael, as we turn to the news of the week, it's obviously Evan Cooper. He resigns on Friday. The name that everyone is hearing right now as being the next defensive backs coach is John Butler. Before we talk Butler, I want to get your thoughts on what the resignation of Evan Cooper means, A, and B, how you think Matt Rule and this Husker football team try to respond and put it to the side as they turn their focus towards Big Ten Media Days coming up, followed by the start of fall camp, and Game 1 will be here before you know it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great timing, obviously, with fall camp basically starting in, 3 weeks? So, how do you put it aside? You have to. I mean, you don't really have a choice. I mean, I think the fact that, Matt Rule kind of already had the search down the road a little bit by the time the news broke. I think is kind of a way to turn the page. I mean, you don't really have a choice. And, the thing that's going to be interesting to watch is, I think the on-the-field stuff and the coaching, I think you can find, comparable coaches. I think Evan Cooper did a fine job, but, I think, if it is Butler, I think, or when it is Butler, I think it ends up being a pretty good hire, especially considering the timeline and, what he brings experience-wise is pretty impressive. But, from Nebraska's point of view, Evan Cooper was really important to the evaluation arm of Nebraska's program. He's been with Matt Rule every stop of the way, back to Temple, and really I think had and has the trust of Matt Rule as a talent evaluator, and being able to identify guys that maybe other schools had overlooked. I think a lot of the people a lot of the players that Nebraska signed recently that kind of seemed like they were out of right field. A lot of those were Evan Cooper evaluations. A lot of the work that the staff did right when they got here, shortly after Matt Rule took the job, was kind of fueled by the evaluations that Evan Cooper did. So he was really important from that aspect, and I think that's something that Nebraska's going to have to find somebody to step up in that way, whether it's somebody off the field or another coach, because that was one thing that I know that Matt Rule really respected his eye for.
We're talking to Michael Bruntz. Going back to Butler, Michael, give me some things that, I don't know if you've kind of dived in on him at all, but are there some good things that you like about him, and are there some things that you're going to kind of want to wait and see in terms of his coaching style and ability?
Yeah, I had dug in on him. I think, the fact that he does have coordinator experience at the college level, that helps a ton. He's coached in a number of different defensive systems, which I think helps when you're talking about somebody having to potentially learn the 3-3-5 and kind of how that all works together on a really short time frame, which is what he would be facing. From talking to people in our network that covered him at Penn State and Minnesota, he's a fiery guy. That was the one thing that they said was, he's not a quiet coach by any means. The players really respected him, and has really kind of been on a fast upward track on his career. And I think that it'll be interesting to kind of see if down the line what happens if Nebraska's searching for a defensive coordinator, because you might have somebody already in the building that would make sense there. So that kind of stood out to me in terms of maybe what you want to wait and see. He has been out of college football for quite a while. That's one thing that you notice with the resume is that that it's a different game, and it's a much different game from when he was in college football for sure. So the one thing I think you can kind of say for him too is he was at Penn State at a time of a lot of uncertainty there. They were facing scholarship limitations and really coached that team really well. So. Like I said, given the time frame for what Nebraska is kind of working with right now, I think it would be an exceptional hire.
Michael, take it back here just a second. We're talking with Michael Bruntz here, Husker 24/7. You said F. Butler's the guy, and then you quickly corrected yourself and said, well, when he's the guy. You want to elaborate on that?
I think that's where things are trending. Okay. For the lack of a different name right now, Nebraska had already been kind of in the search mode for multiple days by the time things kind of broke on Friday at 6:00. So I think that's where things are headed right now. So like I said, we're still waiting for it to become official. The last we knew on Saturday was it was still kind of headed that way, but not quite over the finish line yet. So that's the kind of dancing around the verbiage there, I guess.
Okay. And assuming then he is the guy, and assuming this gets finalized, pen gets put to paper, what do you think his biggest challenge is going to be in 2024? Like, if you just dive into the 2024 season, you talk about the trust factor he has to build, the relationships. He's got some issues in the room. We don't know who's going to start at corner opposite Tommy Hillen. To go deeper into Tommy Hill, we don't know how he's going to respond to a different position coach. It seemed to be Evan Cooper to be the guy that brought the best out of him after years of him getting kind of pushed around. We didn't know where he fit in best. Nobody could really unlock the athletic ability. Evan Cooper was able to do that. What do you think the biggest challenge is going to be in 2024 for Coach Butler?
Well, I mean, I think kind of putting the pieces together, I think is going to be a big part of it. Like you said, I mean, you have to find a starting corner. You have some safeties that, you got to find a way to replace Omar Brown. And certainly there's guys in that room with talent, but, how those pieces kind of fit together and kind of finding the right recipe there is going to be really important. It's a big room. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, they've got a lot of scholarship athletes in that room. They're kind of like everywhere else on the roster right now where there's like tiers of guys where you've got the guys that you can count on at the top, and then you kind of have that next wave of guys coming through, the Dwight Boodles, the Jeremiah Charleses, those types of guys that you're going to have to develop and get ready to go pretty quickly. So that's going to be a challenge. And, I think the one thing that would potentially help is, you got Tony White as your defensive coordinator, coached defensive backs for a number of years at San Diego State, able to help there. That helps a ton. So, it's a veteran room, too, at least with the guys who are going to be starting. So, if you were kind of working with a younger room, I would think that would be a little bit more of a challenge. So it's not necessarily a turnkey spot, but there's plenty to work with going into this fall.
Michael, I know you follow baseball a lot, and this was a take I've had for a few years. I don't want to see Pete Alonso in the home run derby anymore. Like, he has more home run derby appearances than playoff appearances. It's his World Series. I'm tired of it.
Yeah, well, you're basically pandering to the Mets fandom, right? Like that's the only reason he's really there. Like you're kind of hoping that you get a few more eyeballs on it. I agree. I mean, I wouldn't mind a little bit of fresh blood in there either. I didn't see who else was participating, but I wouldn't mind seeing him not in there either.
So Michael Bruntz with us here, Husker 24/7 as we wind it down. Michael, last thought here. I do want to quickly get your thoughts on the day that Sunday was. Terrence Knighton, his Twitter account, a lot of drama was flying around. Does his change in bio and change in profile picture mean anything? Seems like no, as a couple days have gone on. He changed some things back. I just want to get your reaction to that. Was that not weird?
Yeah, maybe not the best job of reading the room. Against the background of everything that had happened on Friday, probably not the best time to be switching the Twitter profile and the pictures. I mean, it's kind of a Nebraska fan base that kind of expects stuff like that to happen. You got to be pretty careful with it. So, yeah, that wasted a couple hours of Sunday for me, at least. So, got to be a little bit smarter with that stuff, I guess. But yeah, it sounds like things are in the clear there at least. So that's good news.
Michael, as we wind it down here, who you got winning the All-Star game? You got AL or NL, or does it even matter? I kind of miss the days where the winner of the All-Star game got home field advantage in the World Series.
Well, this is an American League house, so I will root for the American League. I can't even tell you though the last time I actually sat and watched an All-Star game.
Same.
Which I'm a big baseball guy, so maybe that's a problem. But I'll go AL. And my only hope is that they would all just wear their original team uniforms and not the craptastic ones that they put together to try to sell some more merch.
It's Michael Bruntz with us here. You can find him, follow him on Twitter. Check out his work with Husker 24/7. Michael, appreciate you checking in with us. Next time we have you on, you'll have to ask Schmitty about his broken ankle.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear about that and how he's managing to golf on it all week.
I'm also very curious, but I'm giving him some time away, giving him some stress-free. Just go out there and golf. Don't ask to answer questions for me. But, Michael, appreciate you. We'll chat with you next time.
Thanks. Take care.
There's Michael Bruntz with us. When we return, we'll talk a little bit about Mike Riley. Should we go back there? Let's do it. It's next on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Cornhead Lager.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Rolling through hour 2 here. It's Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Cornhead Lager. No Chris Schmidt. He's got the week off, but I'm joined here in studio by Will Wilson. And I prefaced ended our last segment prefacing a conversation I want to have here about Mike Riley. We're going to get there here in just a second. But before we get there, we go to the phone lines where Scott's been hanging on, and Scott wants to talk about our topic of the day, those young Huskers that you saw on the field and they wowed you. Scott, what do you have for us today? How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Elijah?
Doing well. Can't complain. It's refreshing now that I'm back from the 4th of July holiday. Got a couple days off, and I'm ready for football season first and foremost. I want it to be Big Ten Media Days and fall camp. I'm ready for that already. And the consolation I guess I have is it always feels like these couple of weeks fly by after the 4th of July, and football season's here before you know it.
They do. They really do. Hey, Elijah, the thing I was going to comment on was when my father's he's been deceased for quite a while now, but we'd be sitting there at the football games, and he'd be watching the kickoff, and there'd be a player running down the field. The guy'd get in on the tackle or be close in it, and he said, that guy is going to play a lot of ball. Sure enough, I couldn't name you the specific guys, but those guys are down there first. That was one of the ways that he saw potential, and so he just kind of evaluated talent that way. So I just want to put that in.
Well, I love that because I think back through like my Husker memory bank. I go, Amir Abdullah was the guy that stood out on special teams early. Who remembers Eric Martin? Eric Martin was a special teams guy that ended up making an impact later in his Husker career. He was always all over the field on special teams. I think JoJo Doman's a guy, if you go more recent memory, that was always making plays on special teams before he became a key contributor. That's a good thought, Scott. I like that.
Well, you're welcome, and just keep up the good work. Appreciate it. Glad to be able to get something about my dad in there. Thank you.
Well, Scott, glad to have you on the show today. I appreciate the phone call today, and it's always great honoring parents in that way as well. As Scott, thanks for the phone call. And, that's an interesting thought, Will. I've never quite thought about it in that way, but it does seem to ring true in my eyes of those guys that are making plays on special teams early tend to make plays later in their career as key contributors offensively or defensively. Are there any I'm missing? I mean, maybe Niles Paul?
Yeah, I mean, DeMornay, I'm sure when,
yeah.
That's one name that comes to mind.
Brent Anderson chimes in here on the stream. He says Ralph Brown. A little before my time, early 2000s.
Okay.
It's another good name. Trying to think here, going through the Husker Rolodex. Hasn't been as many in recent years with the play of Nebraska's special teams.
No, there hasn't. There was a good one earlier, J.D. Spielman, even though, that relationship kind of soured. But, that's a good answer.
That's a good one as well. J.D. Spielman made some plays in special teams.
Mm-hmm. I remember that Minnesota game, even though we lost. He tore it up in Minneapolis.
Another phone call coming in here, if you don't mind me taking that.
Go ahead.
Dave, anything you want to say for 30 seconds?
J.D. Spielman's one that comes to mind. Will Compton, maybe. I'm sure O-lineman is a very unforgiving position, kind of a forgetful position too, but I'm sure there was guys that hit the ground running as freshmen, except for Bryce Benhart. Yikes. So, pretty good segment idea, I think, Elijah. Guys who you saw early on that you thought was going to become special. I like my pick in the basketball side with Glenn Watson and Siobhan Shields. Those were two guys I think we all knew. Brent says Steincooler, definitely.
Definitely. We go to the phone lines here. Husker Russ wants to chime in on this topic of discussion. Russ, how we doing today?
I'm great. Just trying to slow down and enjoy the next couple weeks because we all, like you said, when football gets here, it flies. So let's try to enjoy the next couple weeks, and then we can get into the fun time of the year. You were talking about young players. Tommy Frazier was a young player that came in, and I guess he showed his stuff over a period of time as a freshman, and so I think he didn't maybe immediately flash, but every game that he played in, it seemed like he won and started as a freshman, so I think should throw him in there. But little Broncos, Denver Broncos, Terrell Davis, I don't know if you know this story.
Special teams guy, yeah.
He's playing over in Japan, I believe, and he was about ready to quit. He was a rookie out of Georgia. He didn't think he was playing up to his potential, and he was literally the day before the game on the phone home, and he was going to quit football altogether. and they played. I can't remember who they played the next day in a game over there, and they put him on. Shanahan put him on special teams, and he went. I think it was the 49ers, and he went down there. And you can pull it up on YouTube anywhere. Terrell Davis, Japan.
I've seen the video.
And he totally lit that kid up, and his career took off from that play, and his confidence and everything. So, like that guy was saying with his dad, evaluating the talent, and all it takes is one play, one success, one hustle, and all of a sudden your coach notices you. And the next thing you know, look at him. He's a Hall of Fame running back. And he was going to quit the day before.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was Shanahan or Reeves, but I remember hearing an interview with one of those two guys saying, like, yeah, we didn't know if he was going to make the team or not. And then he made that play on special teams. And we're like, well, we have to have a spot in this roster for this guy, whether it's on offense or on special teams. Like, this guy's a ball player because he pretty much knocked a dude unconscious, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Nope. And they said, who is this kid? And he was wearing number 30, and he was wearing that old, the old uniforms, which I hope they kind of get back into. But yeah, I mean, Nebraska football is coming up. I work all the home games in the East Stadium up in the 600 section. This will be my 12th year. Awesome. I am so excited for football this year, guys. I am genuinely excited because I believe there is genuine hope that we have the right man that is running this program, and he's going to put this thing together. We're going bowling this year, and it's going to go up from there. But let's everybody get behind the Huskers. This is legit. We're for real, and this thing's going to turn this year. Thanks, guys.
Russ, thanks. I appreciate the phone call. Husker Russ chimes in with us. Heard from him a few times in the past couple months. Seems excited.
Well, thank God he's up in that 600 section. My family sat there for several years, so thank you for your service.
Good seats, honestly, up there. They're
not terrible.
You have to get used to the angle, but like the lines are shorter for concessions and for bathrooms and tickets and getting in.
Yeah,
and it's weird because it feels like you're like almost on top of the field on your way up there.
Yeah, and you have a backrest.
That is true.
All of them have backrests, if I'm not mistaken.
See, I'm the kind of guy who's leaning forward. I'm into the game,
Yeah.
I'm leaning back that's relaxed, and I'm not relaxed watching Husker football.
Nobody is.
Especially over the past decade.
Yeah.
Well, our topic of the day, if you missed it, young players making an impact. What guys stood out to you in terms of making an impact on a field early in their career, and you say, wow, like that guy's going to be something. It's been a fun discussion point to have today. If you have any thoughts, give us a call, 402-489-1240. Give us a tweet at H Varsity Radio, or you can give me a tweet at Herbal Essences, or the man next to me at Willie on the Radio. Give him a follow, and also check out his show here locally on our home station, 1240 KFOR, for our listeners in Lincoln. The Morning Hookup, Mondays through Fridays, 10 to 11 a.m. is where you can check him out along with his co-host, Bill Hooks. But where I want to go here quickly to end this segment before Will's got to get off to Bags League is the newest episode of the Common Fan podcast. We talked with these guys a couple of weeks ago. It's a collaborative effort between the Common Fan podcast as well as our friend Brandon Vogel, who will be joining us for the show here this Thursday as Brandon makes his way back from a wedding in beautiful Pittsburgh. And the question that they posed this week as they make it through every single coach post Tom Osborne was Mike Riley the biggest miss of the post-Osborne era? And I think you could make a couple different arguments. Callahan could be one as you try to make the stylistic shift post-Frank Solich. You can make the argument for Mike Riley because of the way he was set up for success and the way he kind of drove the program into the ground with his schematic change. And you can also make the argument of Scott Frost as well, not being the right man at the right time for what Nebraska needed for a rebuild. But the argument checks out to me with Mike Riley. The way he was set up for success. The way he had a fantastic defense to kind of try and build his offense, and he made a couple of bowl games, to his credit. Had a couple of good seasons. Had that 9-win season.
Yep.
I mean, ended up at times that season top 15, borderline top 10.
Yeah, even though it was fake ID.
Yeah, I love that. I was going to say, didn't quite feel like that. Maybe a sheep in wolf's clothing.
Yeah.
To flip it around. Like you watch that season. There was an Indiana game. You're playing at Indiana. I remember Nebraska being top 15 at the time, and oh, man, Indiana gave him hell.
We almost lost that game.
He almost lost that game, and he sat back and went,
if it wasn't for two Indiana
good.
defenders colliding with each other, and I think it was Stanley Morgan running one off, I think we would have lost.
Yeah, but I still remember whenever I saw Mike Riley was the hire and being like, who?
Oh,
I know what I was. My dad took me to the dentist's office. I got called out of school at Southeast High. My dad took me to the dentist's office. I make it through the dentist, and it would have been a late lunch, so I would have missed lunch at Southeast. But it's like, okay, we're gonna grab some food. We stop for Chinese food because if I'm late, I might as well be real late.
Yes.
So we stop for Chinese food, sit down, and I pull up my phone and I go, oh.
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska is expected to hire former Oregon State head coach Mike Riley. It never made sense.
It never made sense. And I think he was hired, and here we are in the middle of summer, of course. So, like, this is what we talk about in the summer, right? He was hired for all the wrong reasons. You know, what was to me, the number one reason why he was hired is because of his personality and how nice of a guy he was.
He was the antithesis to Bo Pelini.
Exactly. Like, I, of course, hired him for that very reason. I think football was like the fifth reason why he hired him. And the top reason was his nice attitude. And of course, that is not the number one thing you should hire a coach for. It just makes me mad thinking about it.
One of the comments that I liked on the Common Fan show this week, and I'll give them their credit, giving me a talking point today, is Mike Riley's ability to make prime rib out of chuck roast. I kind of like that. That's what he made his career on. Like at Oregon State, that's not the sexiest place to go lead a football program. Like you're playing in the CFL where you're playing with the kind of the NFL rejects.
Yeah.
Like take your non-prime cuts and turn them into a prime meal is what he did well. But that's not what Nebraska needed at the time. Nebraska had a successful program rolling. They need somebody to take it over the top. Not to take subpar pieces and turn it into above average pieces. They need to take above average pieces and turn them into great pieces.
Exactly. Like for a place like Nebraska, you're supposed to hire somebody who's coming off success. Like let's not forget Mike Riley's last year at Oregon State. He went 5-7, 2-7 in the conference. Like it wasn't even an eye-popping hire. This makes me mad. Why did you have to bring this up?
And I like Skylar's comment here as we close this segment up. We'll get back to Coach Butler and the potential hire that he could be here after the break as Will makes off to bags. But Skylar chimes in and says, Rule seems to be fixing that mindset. Like Riley was the shift to Pelini's mindset that the university and athletic department he says hated the players, which I don't necessarily agree with, but the Nebraska football program is not seen as the shining light and the beacon forward for the program, the thing that you put on the pedestal. And I think Rule and Dannon, and give credit to Trev Alberts as well, is kind of returning Nebraska football back to being the thing at the university.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Elijah Herbel with you here to close out a Tuesday edition of Hail Varsity Radio. 2 segments to go as our friend Will Wilson. He's off to Bags League. I understand the importance of bags. I'm going to call it cornhole, honestly. Like they call it bags. I think here in the Midwest, it's cornhole. I digress. It doesn't really matter. We do appreciate having Will in here on a Tuesday. He'll be with us all week long as Schmitty has the week off, taking himself a little golfing expedition before we lock in for both Big Ten Media Days and the start of fall camp, followed by the first game. It'll be here before you know it. We just finished talking about Mike Riley and his tenure at Nebraska. Was it the biggest mistake of the post-Osborne era? Shout out to the guys in the Common Fan podcast for giving us this topic of discussion today. A couple more names to bring you in terms of guys that flashed early in their career in Nebraska. We'll get to that in just a second. But one thing I do want to mention to put a bow on that Mike Riley conversation is you go back to December of 2014 when Bo Pelini was fired, and you look at some of the coaches that were thrown around as being potential candidates to replace Bo Pelini. Like, was not the best carousel, if you will, for going and finding coaches. I know Nebraska during that time was probably looking to poach a sitting head coach, and the options there, I mean, one of them, Jim Harbaugh, who was Nebraska ever going to be in play there? No, he was likely going back to the alma mater Michigan all along. But elsewhere, you had Lance Leipold off to Buffalo. That would have been Nebraska having some serious foresight, understanding what that was. It was the Buffalo job that really put Lance Leipold on the map, so I don't think you can really blame Nebraska for missing on that one, quote unquote. Pat Narduzzi went off to Pitt, but considering Nebraska wanted a guy who was a bit of an antithesis to Bo Pelini, you weren't going to get that in Narduzzi. Bit of an abrasive defensive guy, not necessarily the guy you wanted. Paul Chryst went off to Wisconsin. I don't think Nebraska was really going to be in the mix on that one either. Not really what they wanted. Mike Bobo to Colorado State. You would have been well ahead of the curve on that one. Just a list of names that I don't think Nebraska was going to find a guy based on just who was available and who was rumored that was going to do a good job. And I think that kind of underscores the fact that firing Bo Pelini was probably not the correct move to make in the first place. Mark Stoops is a name that maybe you could have thrown around. He ended up staying at Kentucky. That was kind of the start of his rebuild at Kentucky. Who knows if he could have pulled him. You look at potentially Ed Orgeron, but Ed Orgeron is a guy that doesn't tend to stay places long. And I mean, even at LSU has that flash in the pan season where he goes and wins a national title. And what does he do after that? Well, not much. That was a name that was thrown around, but he wasn't as popular then as he is now following his short interim stint at USC. He had Craig Bowl at Wyoming. That was a name that was thrown around. Greg Schiano, doing great things now, but he was jobless at the time and wasn't the most popular name. All I'm saying here is it's an interesting topic of discussion to have, to be like, was Mike Riley a mistake? Was it a bad coaching carousel in terms of being able to find coaches? I don't think it's contestable, the fact that Mike Riley was not a good hire for Nebraska. But I just want to put a bow on that conversation. I also want to quickly get into here some names that have been thrown around to me, both on Twitter and people chiming in on the stream with freshman impact players that they looked at and said, wow, that guy's going to be special. One named Grant chimes in on Twitter and says Mike Brown is a guy that he thought really wowed early in the Husker career, saying that dude was a stud. Mike Brown's a guy, again, a little bit before my time, so I can't truly speak on it. Yeah, I'm going to be the young guy in the room here and say, I don't even remember Mike Brown, but he was a little bit before my time. A guy that is in my time on the baseball side of things, this comes from Josh on Twitter, is Max Anderson, a guy that you got because of a COVID crunch at Texas A&M, and was a huge pull in recruiting to get that guy. Freshman season, first at bat was a home run, and you've seen what he's done afterwards, turning himself into a high round draft pick. So I like that as a poll as well from Josh. Again, give me a tweet at Herbal Essences, or give the Twitter page for the show at H Varsity Radio a follow, and let us know what you think there. If you want to chime in on this conversation, if there's any names that we have forgotten. But before we get out of here, I do want to quickly spend some time, as I turn the page in my notes here, to an interview that was on Hurrdat Sports Radio this morning. Damon and Ravi doing a great job. They talked with Ryan Talbot of Syracuse.com. He's the Buffalo Bills beat writer, and he spent some time talking about John Butler, what he thinks John Butler is going to bring to Nebraska. I encourage you to check out this full interview wherever you get podcasts, to search up Hurrdat Sports Radio for our compatriots over there in the morning. And you can hear part of that show here on KFOR, as well as on all the affiliates of Hail Varsity Radio. But he spoke a little bit about what he expects from Coach Butler at Nebraska, assuming he's going to be the guy. That's the assumption we're making. That's the name that's being thrown around now. It doesn't sound like pen's been put to paper yet, but it does sound like that's the target that Nebraska has zeroed in upon. But Ryan Talbot, against Syracuse.com, spent some time this morning talking about what he expects from Butler at Nebraska, having covered him with the Buffalo Bills.
I would expect a unbelievable secondary, honestly. I mean, this guy could work with anyone and get the most out of them. If you look at his tenure in Buffalo, you can look at, he inherited Trey White, a first-round pick. He helped Trey White get to Pro Bowl, All-Pro type caliber levels. But it wasn't just the top caliber players at cornerback either. And I know he had Karen Johnson, one of the best nickels as well. But Dane Jackson, a guy that's in Carolina now, he helped him get a nice little contract in Carolina because of the way that he was able to develop the 7th-round pick. He brought in Kevin Johnson for a year from the Texans. Kevin Johnson held down the fort when given the opportunity. They have brought in, Christian Benford is their number 2 cornerback going into this year, but at times he played like a number 1 cornerback, and this was another day 3 small school Villanova guy. He gets the most out of his players. The only cornerback that really hasn't panned out under his watch has been Kyer Elam, and I think that was more of a circumstance of Elam being more of a man coverage type of player in college, the Bills being a heavy zone type of scheme. But from top to bottom at cornerback, he's been able to get the most out of players. And then, safety position as well. If you want to talk defensive backs as a whole, we know what they had there in Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. But that secondary always played really well. It wouldn't shock me if sooner rather than later John Butler even emerges and becomes their defensive coordinator. He's that good of a coach.
One more thought here from Ryan Talbot, Syracuse.com, on the relationship that he built with players in Buffalo. Obviously, he's going to have to quickly build relationships and earn trust with players here at Nebraska, with fall camp right around the corner.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of players that were disappointed to see him go. My colleague Tim Graham wrote a piece on The Athletic, and he said that he had players, without him reaching out to them, reach out to him first and foremost, just to say what a great coach he was and to speak, highly of this guy. And that tells you what kind of coach John Butler was. It tells you what kind of support he had in this locker room, how much they thought of him as a coach and how much he helped develop players. We had him as a guest on our podcast a few months ago, probably about 2 months ago, and he talked about the preparation that he takes for this job and how he does get some satisfaction out of seeing some of his players go elsewhere, like a Dane Jackson, and get a nice contract, or seeing players get re-signed like Taron Johnson and become the highest paid nickel cornerback in the league, which I believe that's no longer the case, but at the time it was. So, he knows that his coaching and the players reach out and say as much to him have played a role in helping these guys. A lot of these, day 3 picks, Taron Johnson was a day 3 pick, and I've already gone over some others. It helped them not just make the league, but develop and become players that are sought after in this league.
So a thought from Ryan Talbot, Syracuse.com, their Buffalo Bills beat reporter. He was on with Damon and Ravi on the Hurrdat Sports Radio this morning. You can catch that from 7 to 10 or in podcast form wherever you get it. We'll also get a thought from Coach Butler himself. That's coming away after the break here to talk a little about how he likes to build relationships with players. It's Hail Varsity Radio.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time here on a Tuesday, it's Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Cornhead Lager. Elijah Herbel taking you solo through the end of the show here, as we just heard from Ryan Talbot. He appeared on Hurrdat Sports Radio this morning. Couple cuts from him. If you want to hear that full interview, check it out wherever you get podcasts. Search up Hurrdat Sports Radio, and while you're at it, search up Hail Varsity Radio as well. Get subscribed, leave us a review, good, bad, or ugly. We want to know your thoughts so we can make the necessary improvements and bring you the best show possible. Before we get out of here, though, I do want to bring you a thought from Coach John Butler himself, as he sat down a couple of months ago, so shortly following him leaving the Buffalo Bills. Tim Graham, the beat reporter for The Athletic on the Buffalo Bills, does his podcast. He brought on Coach Butler, and Coach Butler spent some time talking about how he builds relationships and trust with players. That's going to be huge with him over the next month as he gets his defensive back room geared up for fall camp.
With me, the common theme was always, I'm not trying to sell them on me. I'm just trying to develop a relationship. And I think that my level of communication, my ability to be authentic with them, and then I think I know what I'm doing. And I think you add those things together, they see like, well, okay, this guy's trying to get me better. He's honest with me. He never lies to me. He never bullshits me. He never speaks in half tone, and you got to they're never reading the gray. I'm a black and white guy. Sometimes people like that. Sometimes people don't, because sometimes people don't like hearing the truth. But with players, they want the truth. They want communication. And then on top of it, the tactical skill of we would go out there every day and we'd be out there as long as the league would allow us to be out there. And players don't always love that. But I think what they saw was the shit that I was working on them with, they were getting better. And so then I could say, hey, listen, I coached in Houston. We won the division championship 4 years. We were number 1 defense in the league. We had the same stats in Houston that we've had here. And here's the program for you to get better. You got to come out 15 minutes every day, work on your footwork, your hands, your eyes. You got to come up and study film with me on your own. You got to study, you got to bring me questions. It's an all encompassing. And if you do that, I had success with AJ Boye. He was an undrafted player, signed a big time contract to go to Jacksonville. And then we've done the same thing here. And obviously players are motivated by 2 things, playing time and money. And if you can develop them, they'll play. And if they play well, they're going to make money. And all that has to happen is people look at, okay, well, look at Levi. He started 47 straight games. What happened? Oh, and he got paid. Look at Dane Jackson. He just signed a $15 million contract with, there's seeds of success there that I think that as it got going, the same things they would say to you that they said to you, if a rookie came into the locker room was about, man, why we always have to go out there? Why are we doing this? Why is JV always on my ass? Well, then the other guys would say, do you want to play? Do you want to make money? Do you want to have a long career? just look at the proof is in the pudding. So I think that, and it was a constant. There was never this. It was never like, okay, you come out tomorrow. You don't like, I was just steady with him.
That's Coach John Butler, what he brings to relationships in his defensive back room, assuming he's going to be the hire. Kind of falls in line with some things we've heard from Matt Rule in terms of going to shoot you straight, going to tell you what you maybe don't want to hear, but what the truth is, because at the end of the day, going to get you playing time and I'm going to get you paid. And that's what Matt Rule wants to do, is develop, shoot you straight, turn you into the best football player you can be so you can go off to the NFL, earn that first contract, and then more importantly, go earn that second contract. So that was Coach John Butler, his appearance on a podcast a couple months ago. Pretty good to hear from him. That'll do it for us today on a Tuesday edition of Hail Varsity Radio. We'll have plenty more coming your way tomorrow. Mike Gundy's make some really interesting comments today at Big Ten Media Days. His star running back, Ollie Gordon, arrested for a DUI, a suspicion, I should say, a DUI. And Gundy saying if there's any punishment, it's that he's going to make him carry the ball 50 times the first game. Mike Gundy saying some things about his own drinking and driving. A lot of craziness from Mike Gundy. It's going to make national news. We'll talk about it tomorrow. It's Hail Varsity Radio. I'll be with you 4 to 6 on Hail Varsity Radio. Talk to then.